So, oh well, whatever. There they can see what we talk about: trading,
Yeah.
investing, all those things. So I think it's important to look at the market from multiple angles. Um, and it's really surprising how many people want to dig themselves into one position and really don't want to even look at other evidence. It actually blows me away. I think I see a lot. They say like things that are lacking in school. I'm not a big fan of school, but they say that they don't teach you how to do critical thinking. And so I believe that like in order for me to like make a decision on anything, but especially something big, I need to hear both sides of the argument. I need to hear 3 or 4 sides to that argument so that I can make an informed decision. And so anyway, maybe I don't really like trading as much, but I still want to know all about it. Maybe Yusuf thinks the trading is the best way, but he still wants to look at the fundamental side. And so, we definitely have our mind puts the information together a certain way, but we got to be open to that, right? And man, just this last week, it just blew me away how close-minded people are. I made some comment about I put out a thing. I said, "Is EOS a scam or an Ethereum killer?" It was a question. That's it. It was a question, and then I was going to look at the evidence.
Dude, you trolled, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it was a question. Is it a scam or is it Ethereum killer? Because some people think Ethereum EOS is a scam because it's super centralized. It's the longest money raised in history. All these different factors. But some people think that it's gonna crush Ethereum. It's gonna take over the whole market. Well, to cut to the answer, I think that this is not a winner take all game. I think we're going to see multiple platforms working in harmony, and I think developers, dApp developers, will be able to choose which platform works best for them. My point is that, oh my God, people came out so mad. How could you say it? How could you even put the word in the same name? Are you like, how you can't be so emotionally attached to anything? You got to be willing to you got to be willing to look at information from multiple vantage points. And so that's my point, right? So whether you're all in on trading, I saw a guy that I follow, Ari David Paul. He's a big time fund manager. He's a fundamental fund manager. He kind of came out against TA over the weekend and was saying TA is kind of worthless. And so anyway, I'm not trying to pick on either side. I want to know as much as I can about everything. What do you think, Yusuf?
I guess I'd like to add a little to that. And this is more of like even a broader philosophical question on all sorts of things. And before that, I'll pass it to Yusuf because I love your example. So obviously in the crypto space, there are things that are defined as, gospel, and, it's heresy to either question that. But this is like life in general, from, people that make discoveries like, I think it was like Newton when he discovered gravity, or like Copernicus or Galileo, that the sun was at the center of the earth instead of on the side. Like they used to roast people alive, for that sort of stuff. And, even in the community, obviously as an outsider, I say this with a grain of salt, but, there's been a lot of discussions in popular culture of a particular, performer who's said some pretty outrageous things, which in itself is outrageous. But what I've noticed is when people ask that question, there's a huge amount of people that just don't want to critically think. They just want to like crucify. And I'm not saying, again, these are touchy topics, so I'm kind of dancing around it. But just the general, I hear what you're saying, Mark, and I'll pass it to Yusuf on this.
Well, Charles, you're dancing so much, Yusuf and I don't know what you're saying.
I'll bring this home. I'll tie it up for Charles.
Yusuf knows.
So basically what Charles is speaking about is the whole Kanye West thing, when he specifically referenced how slavery was a choice for those that are listening. And I spoke a little about this in a little interview I did with Boyce Watkins, is that us as a community and communities abroad, we need to have some type of emotional intelligence, emotional disposition, where when and where we hear things, it doesn't that are uncomfortable or different or challenges and provokes thought, it doesn't push us into shutting down, closing down the doors, and cutting people off. So I've seen a lot of people react to that particular comment in different ways. And one person in particular, and what I said in the interview was that, and I know you guys are familiar with this, when we hear these type of content being shared, we say we're going to block this person, we're not going to support this person, whatever the situation may be. But in reality, what we're doing is we're actually shortening our span. We're actually closing and making our worlds a little bit smaller with more people that think like us, which is a little bit ignorant. So even if you disagree with somebody or there's content that may make you feel uncomfortable, it shouldn't make you go up in arms about it. We have to have some type of emotional reserve, and that goes for everybody. So, and that kind of leads into Mark's point where he was just asking a question and people went up in arms because they have this preconceived and disposition of how they feel about EOS, and anything that might challenge that stature, they're going to go against. It's immature.
It's and you know what? It's one thing when it's religion or is the world flat. I mean, those are obviously much bigger, deeper topics, and I can understand how people get more emotionally attached to those. I still agree with what you're saying, Yusuf, but I can understand those. But we're talking about investing. Like, investing is not supposed to be emotional, right? If you're emotional, you're losing. You've already lost. So I can understand why that happens with, like I said, religion. But I mean, dude, we're talking about EOS isn't even a product that's even out yet. I mean, they haven't even launched. I mean, come on. Like, how can you be so emotionally charged, right?
Go to Reddit. Go to any Bitcoin Reddit thing, right?
I mean, some of the people that get involved in these projects, they are heavily emotionally invested. Even if you look at ETN Electronium, I dare you to say something bad about Electronium. They're going to be coming at you with pitchforks, like, don't speak on Electronium.
and I do get it. I do get it in a sense, right? So, like, I've always kind of said too that, like, you should be investing into stuff that you like. So, you know, for example, the whole reason I got into Bitcoin and I wanted to start telling people about Bitcoin was because it was revolutionary. It was not PayPal 2.0. It was not a better payment system. It was censorship resistant. It was the first time in history that we've ever been able to have that, because technology now enabled us to have this censorship resistance. And so for me, that was everything that I got in for. And so I like to follow projects that continue that. And EOS is sacrificing censorship resistance for speed. Okay, I get it. I don't really like that, but I understand that people do. I understand the need for it. And as an investor, I can decide to make money on EOS. I don't have to agree with their ideology. But some people may be more principled and say, I'll never invest into a company I don't agree with. And so everybody can choose on their own. My point is just from an investor standpoint, especially from a trader perspective, from an investor perspective, maybe you care a little bit more, but from your perspective, Yusuf, right? There's no emotional attachment. It's all about getting in and getting out, right?
Yeah, I have, it's surprising how little I know about many of these projects. You know, people hit me up all the time, like, what do you think about this coin and development on this? Is like, you're better off hitting up Mark or Charles or somebody who's actually like, I'll let you know when it's going up. But outside of that, I don't know anything about the actual coin or the project or white paper, any of those things. But to Mark's point, it's not an either or thing. So I enjoy trading. That's what I do. But it's healthy to have strategic partners in different places. So I said, okay, I know Mark he's researching companies and so on and so forth. I know Charles is looking for new developments in different coins or even markets. So I could look and turn to different places and then make investments there. So it's not an either or thing. I could trade and I could also long-term invest. So, you know, it's a combination of the two. But it's just, as far as my lane and capacity, I'm just looking to see, you know, what's selling, what's buying.
You know, the thing, though, I think everything you say, though, Mark and Yusuf, just runs counter to human emotion, right? Because as humans, we want to believe it's the one thing, right? That one thing that's going to whatever the heck it is, right? And if we only knew that one thing, we'd all be set. And those are our human emotional triggers that make sense, right? If we say, hey, Yusuf, it's the 5 things to become a successful investor or a day trader, you're like, yeah, right? You just don't pay attention to that. But if it's the one thing, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to know the one thing. And
Well, I mean that makes good clickbait only because everybody's looking for the easy way with everything.
yeah.
But I don't know if that necessarily applies to this conversation specifically. I think what does, though, in regards to human emotion or psychology, is what we always talk about, which is people are motivated by two things: pleasure and pain. So as prices go up, they want to jump in for the pleasure, and as prices go down, they want to get out because it's painful. And so it's those human emotions that make it very difficult to be a successful trader or investor, because you have to go against when prices are down and everybody wants to get out, I have to go in. When prices are up and everybody wants to buy, I have to sell. And so you do have to work against your raw human emotions. And so that's super challenging for anybody. That's why, especially more than ever, you have to take the emotion out, because it's already so hard psychologically. If you have emotion on top of that, oh man, it's like super glue.
And you guys bring up two really good points. I mean, and to your point, Mark, in regards to the emotions, is that one of the biggest things that I hit on when it comes to trading is emotional intelligence, emotional discipline, emotional disposition. Like that's super, super, super important. Because there's no way you'll be able to survive the markets if you're trading and you're playing with, and you are emotional in the actual assets, whatever you're investing in. So like I had like little trainings before, and I try to show people different technical analysis and different confluences, and people are just looking for that one thing. Like what's one thing that I can do to make me million? Like I don't care about any of this stuff. So it's really interesting. But to that emotional point that you made, and to those from the fundamental background saying that you really can't do or succeed to some people that may have some reservations about technical analysis, is that everything's driven by emotion. Any market that you look at is driven by emotion. And to subtract credence from technical analysis, you must also adhere to that anything and everything in life doesn't have patterns. So you have to also start to subscribe to those ideologies. If you believe that everything in life, in this world, has some type of confluence and some type of pattern, then why would those patterns and confluences not show on a stock chart or any price chart for that matter? So it's not just a whole bunch of bars going in a whole bunch of directions. I mean, there's patterns, there's systems to these things that evidently you could profit from. And that's in any market, whether it's stocks, Bitcoin, crypto, whether that's foreign currencies. There's always going to be some type of pattern and lines of confluences involved.
Cool. So let's actually jump to some news. And I have I don't know if it's a challenge. I have an idea to throw out to you, Yusuf, in terms of a fun project. So I found this to be very interesting. I don't know if you noticed this, but there is this game out there called Crypto Kitties. It's essentially like buying a pet rock or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's really kind of gained a lot of steam because people are, if you want to call it the epitome of irrational exuberance, people have paid, north of $100,000 for a, blockchain-enabled cat.
Wow.
Yeah. So now Steph Curry is going to release his own brand of Crypto Kitties. And, I would be curious to explore, because there are people that are like my daughter's actually started like flipping these things. So she'll buy like a Crypto Kitty for like, and she's not doing technicals. I don't know what the heck she's doing, but she'll put like, 0.1 ETH into a Crypto Kitty, and, she'll tell me that, and I'm just like, you're nuts. And then like 3 weeks later, she like sold it for like 0.2 ETH or whatever on that side. So I'd be curious. I mean, there might not be enough volume to actually like, run technicals on this or not, but this would just be a fun thing to explore trading, virtual cats.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a look at that on a day with lots of time and boredom. Whenever that becomes something, let me know. I mean, something worth looking at. If you're telling me about it, maybe it's worth looking at right now. So maybe I will.
Steph Curry's in on it, man.
That doesn't mean anything to me. Steph Curry's an idiot. Like, what makes me think Steph Curry's a savvy investor?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, who cares? I don't care what celebrities or artists are involved. Like, that doesn't mean anything to me.
It's funny how much credit people get because they're somewhat famous. I mean, so he plays basketball really good. Yeah. What does that mean? He all of a sudden he knows politics, or he knows investing, or he knows morals. I mean, come on.
I don't mean he's literally idiot for anyone that's watching, because I have to pull back sometimes. But I'm just saying, like what Mark said, I don't buy into that. I don't care what he's doing.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I know those crypto kitties that made a lot of money. I know Charles can speak to this, being an old-time internet guy, but cats have been the biggest thing on the internet for a really long time. Like cats, right? They're like the most popular thing, most searched thing, most viral thing, right? Like cats.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. It kind of makes sense that the crypto kitty has been the biggest thing in crypto. But it's funny because just this last couple of days, I read somebody's point of view as to why cats are the biggest thing on the internet. Anybody want to take a venture as to why that may be?
Well, the only thing I know is women seem to interact in a positive manner with cats in ways that I cannot fathom. You know, I've had, like, for example, wet cats. I don't know what it is. I look at like a picture of a wet cat and I'm just like, whatever. But, you know, like whether it's girlfriends I've dated, you know, even my ex, even my daughter, they see a picture of a wet cat and there's this like involuntary reaction that is just like, they just melt. I don't know. You know, you Seth, maybe that's something to like put in your arsenal, because you mentioned that, you know, you're on the, you know, that you're kind of looking around, you know, build up a stock of wet cat photos. And, I mean,
well, this guy put out this answer, which is not factual. It was just his theory, but it makes a lot of sense. And that is that we have two people, right? We have cat people and we have dog people. And dog people are very social. Dog people take their dogs on the trails and they meet other dogs. They take them to dog parks and meet other dogs. But cat people are loners. You don't take your cat to socialize with other cats. And so it's the only place that they can connect and share pictures and share stories, because dog people go to dog parks. Cat people have nowhere to go and they're all on the internet.
Wow.
That's brilliant, actually.
It means nothing. I don't even know why we're talking about it, going down a stupid rabbit hole, but it was interesting because for a decade, right, I've known like cats are the biggest thing on the internet, and I know crypto kitties. And so anyway, and then I read that, I'm like, wow, I don't know why I read half the stuff I do. I get crazy.
I mean, now that you're kind of pairing the two, the crypto and the kitties, it's starting to make more and more sense. Starting to make really good marketing.
But I wanted to bring up something today, a couple things. One, old man Buffett has been in the news, shaking his fist and yelling in the wind again, telling everybody that crypto's a scam, crypto's a joke, crypto has no purpose for anything. Called it, I think he called it rat poison.
I saw. Yeah, did you go out to Omaha, or have you been there before, Mark? When they do that?
No, I got no reason to go to Omaha.
It's really cool. It's really cool. Like, you know, all you need is to own like a share, and I think Class B works also. But if you have a share, you can go there for their like big annual conference, and it's like Woodstock for, you know, rich old investor types.
Yeah. So, you know, he's been pretty outspoken against cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin specifically, because it's the big one. And I think the media loves just to get him riled up and get his sound bites probably. And, you know, on one hand, I have to look at this and it's a little bit, you know, I have to take notice. I respect Warren Buffett. I mean, his investing strategy has made him the most famous investor in the world. And a lot of my investing strategy is taken from what he does. So I have to give him lots of credit. And so then ultimately I want to know why. Why does he think that? What is he seeing, right? What is it that he sees that I don't? Why does he draw that conclusion? Because I do respect him. Obviously, I don't agree with him, but I do respect his opinion. But yeah, what he said is it's quote, probably rat poison squared. So that was pretty strong, right? He said,
so what's your opinion? I mean, it seems like you've given this some thought. Are you at a point, or are you still gathering information?
No, I've done quite a bit of digging. I've tried to go back and look at all the things that he's actually said. Like I said, I want to try to understand why he comes to that realization, because maybe I'm the idiot. Maybe I'm missing something. I think at the end of the day, what I've come up with is that he's old. So what I mean by that is that we are sitting on the edge of a brand new technology that's so transformative that he doesn't quite have a grasp on it. So there's two reasons why I think he's missing the ball. So the first one is that he's not quite seeing what it is. And the problem is actually what we went back to earlier, Yusuf, where you talked about it's actually what's called normalcy bias. So I'm biased to what is normal today, and then I can't look at anything new. So going back to the world is flat or whatever, people have this bias. And so he is an old financial guy, and he has that lens, and that's what he looks at everything with. And this doesn't fit into that lens. And so we're seeing it not just with Buffett, but all the financial, all the big financial guard. They're looking for a way to get in on this. They're looking for a way to use this to, get a piece of this explosive stuff. But what they don't understand is that this gets rid of them. So there's not really a place for them. And that's why they're not understanding it. They can't see a way where they can get in the middle between us and rent seek. Right? They're rent seekers. All they do is try to take pieces of transactions. And so because there's no place for them, they can't find a way, then to them, it doesn't make any sense. And so that's problem number one. What do you think about that?
Well, keep in mind, Warren Buffett is very clear that he only invests in things that he understands. And I mean, it doesn't matter if he is in or not, because he did miss the internet too.
Right.
I mean,
well, and so that goes back, that actually goes into the second point that I would make about him, is he does only invest into certain things that he understands, as you just said, Charles, but also that he sees as like tangible. So what he said, so like, for example, he thinks gold is ridiculous to invest in. And, gold's been around for before money. And so obviously you can debate that, but for him, he doesn't like speculative assets. So he said, I don't have the quote up in front of me, but he basically said, with stocks, and actually this morning he came out and doubled down and said that he would buy stocks over bonds in a nanosecond. That was the quote actually from this morning. But what he said is that, and I don't have this quote, but he said, like when he buys shares of Hershey or Coke or whatever, they make something, they made something, they've done something. But what has Bitcoin ever made? What has Bitcoin ever done? What have cryptocurrencies ever done? So that was his main argument. And like I said, I don't have the quote in front of me, but it was to that effect. So these stocks, Hershey, Coke, his big companies, they've done something, they've made something. There's a railroad, whatever, right? But what has Bitcoin done? Well, this is where I think he doesn't understand, because what Bitcoin has done is created a new technology that's censorship resistant. It's given a platform and a framework for the first time in history for humans to conduct commerce in a trustless system. And that's massive. It's done something. He just doesn't understand what it's done, and he has no way to assign value to that. And as a value investor, I will go back and say that anything that you assign value to is worthless anyway, because at the end of the day, it's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. So why are stocks worth 8 times or 20 times today? I don't know. Somebody wants to pay 20 times, they're worth 20 times. Why do they go to 8 times in a couple, So I would go say any value is made up anyway, but he just doesn't, he said that Bitcoin hasn't done anything like Coke has, but I argue that they have, and he just doesn't see it.
I mean, so I've actually made the pilgrimage and I follow him. I don't trust, I'm not saying I don't, I take what he says, I respect what he says, but I also take it with a grain of salt. But here's an anecdote that I have that might tell you something. Like in the past couple of years, Buffett has reversed his opinion on the internet. One of the things that caused him to reverse his opinion was that he somehow realized finally that Geico had spent like $400 million on Google ads. And he was like, well, crap. One of my companies, Geico, which is like one of the top insurance companies in the world, we've spent $400 million on this internet stuff. Crap. Maybe I should go buy some Google stock, or maybe I should go buy some Facebook stock. So I'm not saying, he doesn't, you know what I mean? So it's like, I can imagine in his side, because of how he thinks, what'll happen is one of his companies that he's heavily invested in will eventually adopt cryptocurrencies. Maybe it's Geico for an insurance blockchain. Maybe it's, I think Wells Fargo, he's got a big position there, and they start using Ripple or something like that. I think with how he thinks, he needs to see that adoption. And with all his diversified holdings, he has that information. And once that happens, then it'll click. Do you see what I mean? So that would be my take on it, on that front.
Yeah, maybe. I just, we don't know what's going to happen. And maybe in 10 years, of course, probably by the time he comes around to it, he might be dead. Unfortunately, he's pretty old at this point. But I think, again, it actually ties back to what we first started talking about, which is like, man, have an open mind, You might come to the realization after having an open mind that it doesn't make sense, but you should be willing to look at it. But I just, I think to a lot of people watching this right now, they might think, a lot of people are still thinking, is this real? I mean, I talk to people every day and they're like, is it real? Is it over? Is it ever going to be money? All these different thoughts. And so when you see someone like Buffett coming out so strongly, Bitcoin's it's rat poison. I kind of want to give that perspective to people that may be watching this, that put a lot of credit to what.
The one thing too, the other thing to keep in mind, Buffett is not an unsavvy person, and I'm not sure if this is deliberate, but I remember, I'm sure Tony Robbins. I remember listening to a Tony Robbins talk where he explained, why is Buffett, like he compared Buffett versus Carl Icahn, I think, or, Soros. And he literally said, Soros and Icahn are actually better investors than Buffett, but Buffett is better on the camera. And that's why he's got that reputation over like someone like Carl Icahn, where Tony like gave the example. He's like, I walked into like Carl Icahn's office to give an interview and Carl Icahn told me to get the heck out. No cameras, nothing. Tony was like, this guy's he is what he is. So I don't know that might be, playing a little too conspiracy theory wise, but if I was Warren Buffett and maybe I wasn't too hot on it, but I knew people are going to look at me and I wanted to get some PR and everything like that, I might take a stance and, amplify my, negative opinions on Bitcoin and stuff like that. And at his age, he probably doesn't even care. It's like, what are you going to do? Yell at me, throw rocks at me. I got enough money. I don't care.
He certainly doesn't care. Like I said, I just wanted to bring it up for people that are watching that are still maybe questioning, like, is this thing really real? And then they see Buffett coming out and talking so strongly about it. So just wanted to kind of give them a different perspective to what he said and maybe why he's saying that as well. So yeah, that was it. I think.
Do you think that actually impacted, because there was a little dump in prices in the last day or two? Do you think there was a panic sell based on what Buffett said?
I would like. I think Yusuf should comment on the little market dump, but I'll answer real quick before he goes into that. But no, I don't think it dumps off of Buffett. I don't think Buffett has enough merit in this space to do a dump. I would say I wouldn't call it a dump. I would call it a little breather, a market breather, a little just a regular correction. I think the market's run up pretty strong and fast, and it's due for a breather. If I was going to put any kind of fundamental news to it, I would say it's probably because of the big meeting today with the SEC over Ethereum. That's probably what's causing a little bit of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the market today. I think probably after the meeting ends today, we'll probably see a rally. But other than that, if it wasn't for the news, it's just a normal correction. But let's pass it to Yusuf and get his thought.
Yeah, it was just typical take profit season. It was nothing out of the normal. I have Ethereum pulled up right here, and it took profit right down to the levels it was supposed to go to. It was nothing abnormal there. You want
to pull up the chart and share your screen? We always love looking at the charts. Come on.
Do you guys?
I'm fascinated by it. I mean,
it seems so boring, but I'm going to share real quick just to give you guys a quick look, and we'll get back to the conversation.
While he pulls that up, right now as we speak, in order, EOS, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, and Tron are the top 5 volume coins on Binance right now.
Wow.
So heavy volume going on those. So I expect the volume or the prices to be picking up. But yeah, let's see what the charts say.
So, I mean, just keep this really simple, just leading to the conversation Mark with the sentiment Mark was sharing. We bought up on Ethereum. We went way up to – I'm looking at Bitfinex, by the way. Went up to about 840.
Are these daily candles?
This is an hourly candle.
Oh, we're on hourlies? Okay.
Hourly time frame. So on about 838, and we shot back down. If you look where this black line is, this is where the breakout originally was, right around 695. So that's really typical. I mean, once you see a big run up to pull back to where the breakout area was and start pushing back up again. And if you look closely here, this is considered a double bottom, where we get a low, then we get a higher low. Even though this wick down, this is still considered a double bottom. So this is actually a good time to get back into Ethereum if you're just looking at raw technicals. So, yeah, there's really nothing to be seen. And I kind of shared that even when I was in a conversation with you guys, was looking at Ripple, and I'm going to pull Ripple up. And I said this very specifically. I'm going to share this. That we had an opportunity where we was going to break out towards the upside. But I did share that if we was to break down, we'll break down just temporarily for another leg down and start working our way back up. And if you look at Ripple, these are signs of exhaustion in the market. If you're looking at little wicks, we're starting to reject against certain levels and areas. So basically the market is finding support. That's what it's doing right here. Same thing on Ethereum, it's finding support. So a lot of smart monies is coming back into Ripple, coming back into Ethereum. There's several different ways to trade this. You could buy the bottom, which sometimes is kind of like catching falling knives, or you can kind of wait till it starts to trend back upwards and then get into the trend and ride it back up. So there's a couple different ways you can get into it. But as far as like the market in general, there's really nothing to be concerned about. And I also mentioned EOS in the group, so it's important that I pull that back up. And I shared that EOS was in this wedge. I got in around here the first time. It went up, pulled back, bounced back up, and I got out just about break even, might have made $1 or $2. And then it fell back down, and then it broke back up. So I missed the EOS, but I got into some shorts that were actually moving. EOS just wasn't moving. So I kind of lost interest. But these patterns have some type of meaning, confluence in the market, and EOS is looking for another pump again. I'm not sure who keeps buying it. Somebody's drunk on EOS, so it's looking like EOS is going up in price. So,
you mentioned you had a pretty eventful and exciting weekend. So was it between EOS and Ripple, or
Yeah, I was playing EOS and Ripple, but then EOS really started to stall out. Like, this was the move I was looking for, the breakout. It went up and closed bullish, but started fall back down. So the volume on EOS starting to decline. So I kind of got disinterested in EOS. But when I looked at Ripple, I saw Ripple about to sell off. So that made me really interested. So we had this nice little sell-off right here on Ripple. So that got me excited. This was like, what, 9%? So Ripple was the play that I took. And if you compare that to EOS, even now, I could still get in EOS. But I'm just not that excited about getting into it. But if I would have stayed in EOS, I would be up. I'll be up 4% right now. So I booked 9% versus holding through the night to be up 4%. And so Ripple was the move. Ripple was the move to play to get into.
But what do you think about ETH for this week? Have we found support? Do you think? I mean, based off of this meeting happening today, I think is going to be the catalyst. I would think after this meeting, the news is going to be bullish, and I think we'll see a rally. Does the chart support that?
I would say so. I mean, if you look at it, this is the support. This black line, again, support is a zone. It's not a perfect line, but this is the support zone. And if you look how we rushed down here, we pulled back, bounced off. We rushed down here again, wicked up, bounced off. So it is perfect technicals to go long, to be honest. I have no reason to think that we're selling off again. A few areas to look out for to clear is when we clear this area right here, then that's even more of a bullish confirmation. That's where things really broke down. So if you didn't get in at the bottom here, which is where I am, if you got in at 750, am I giving signals, Charles? Let me make sure I'm not giving signals. I'm not telling you guys to buy or anything like that. I'm just saying, technically, looking at the charts, 750 is another indicator to say, all right, maybe we are going to see much higher prices. Yeah, but I mean,
I was giving my thoughts. I think, like I said, I think that we'll have a rally based off of the news. I was saying, in my opinion, I think we saw a little dip, one, because the market needed it, and two, possibly because of the news, the big meeting that's happening today with the SEC. My guess was that the meeting would be bullish and would rally, and you were just saying whether you thought that was accurate or not. So, so you think the charts support that Ethereum is back down to support and should rally? Perfect timing with the news coming off.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, whenever you see a run up, I mean, we're in a neutral bullish market, at least in Bitcoin. Ethereum is a lot more bullish than Bitcoin. So whenever you see a big run up, there has to be take profits. I mean, as you said many times, Mark, the market never runs in one direction or another, just in one straight line. So there has to be take profits. We've seen a healthy take profit right here. What is this? 15, 16%, almost 20% take profit. So that's pretty healthy in a bullish continuation pattern. So I have no reason to think that Ethereum is falling lower in price, and I'm currently still bullish on Ethereum.
Cool. Yeah, so not trying to hold anyone to it. I was just, that's kind of what I'm seeing in the market fundamentally, and you're seeing it technically. So yeah, it makes good sense.
So it's a big day for Ethereum, and I guess what's going on? You want to just expand? You said there's an SEC investigation. I know there's been a lot of talk on, is it a security or not? Is it related to that?
So that's the big thing that's happening today. Similar to a few months ago. So if we're going to rewind the clock a little bit, let's go back a little bit further in history. So Ethereum launched and became so Bitcoin launched as a blockchain platform. Ethereum launched as a better version that included smart contracts. And those smart contracts gave Ethereum the perfect platform for ICOs to launch off of. And in 2017, it became the ICO, platform, and it launched all these ICOs. In July 25th of last year, the SEC, it was what I call the day that the market changed. And so on that day, the SEC wrote out a press release saying, hang on, you guys, this is not right. We think that these are security offerings and we should be regulating these. You should be registering with us. And that is the day that things started changing. So we started seeing projects start to shift over to be trying to be not securities. And since that time, there's been all this talk of whether they're securities or not. We saw a few months ago, Jay Clayton, who's the head of the SEC, and Giancarlo, who's the head of the CFTC, they do the commodities. They met before the Senate, and they basically the market had dumped into that meeting. Everybody was afraid of what was going to happen. And it was actually surprisingly good. Both of them have a really good grasp on what blockchain technology is. They both seem to want to have like this hands-off approach to allow it to grow. And so then the markets rallied. And I think that's kind of where we're at today. But anyway, those talks have continued. We've seen them come out and say that we do think it's possible for something to be a security and then move to a utility. And that's where we believe, that's where most people believe Ethereum is today. Although it was launched through a token sale, so they raised money by selling tokens like in an ICO, which is technically a security offering. So maybe they did a security offering and that was a problem. But today, it's not a security because it's totally decentralized. And it's working. So that means that it's decentralized. So all the tokens today are distributed through mining, and it's usable. So you're actually using the tokens in a utility manner for their specified use. So it's decentralized and it's working. And so it's not a security today. Maybe it was, but it's not. And so anyway, the SEC was supposed to be meeting today with more. The whole government's getting together to have this conversation. Is Ethereum a security or not? It has massive implications to the entire space because, one, about 75% of all tokens are built on Ethereum. I think over 2,000 unique tokens are on Ethereum platform. So if Ethereum is a security, 75% of the market's affected. So much, in fact, that about 2 weeks ago, the two largest hedge funds or venture funds in crypto, Andreessen Horowitz and Union Square Ventures, went and met. They assembled a team, the best attorneys in the space, and they went and met with the SEC. And they said, hey, we want to talk to you about this before you go rule on anything. We think that Ethereum is a utility because of this, this, and this. And we're asking for safe harbor. We're asking, basically what that means is that forget whatever happened in the past. Let's just move forward, kind of a thing. So a lot of eyes are on this. Today is the day of the hearing. And we'll see what they say. If they call it a security, it could be really bad for the market. And if they call it a utility, then I think we'll see the market rally.
That's interesting. So the ramifications, so if the SEC calls Ethereum a security, what that means, as I understand it, I'd like you to confirm this, Mark. That means then is Ethereum and anything on the Ethereum blockchain that's been issued technically would have been a securities offering. And with the statute of limitations on the SEC, they can actually go back and make an example of any securities offering that they didn't like, because everyone was in non-compliance that took any money from a U.S. person. Is that the understanding? And that's probably why
we don't know the full ramifications of what that would mean and how that would play out. We don't know, but that's what the markets hate: fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So it's the uncertainty that the market reacts to. So we don't really know what that would do. We just know that it would shake things up pretty bad while they figure that out. Now, obviously there's a bunch of sides to this argument, which is, well, Ethereum's totally decentralized. So what are they going to do? They can't shut it down. So what are they going to do?
Could they go after?
The SEC is just the United States. So what's the United States going to do? It's global. So what, right? So there's all kinds of things. Obviously, then the other side is, well, the United States is the largest financial market in the world, and so we can go back and forth. You want to know what I think?
Sure. Yeah, I would.
Most of the attorneys that have weighed in on this, commodities attorneys, securities attorneys, previous regulators, they don't think that the SEC is going to call it a security. They don't think they're going to go back and do anything because this isn't the type of thing they would normally do or they would want to do. To go back 3 or 4 years and try and retroactively do something is just not something that they do. It's not something they'd want to do. It's just too big. Second of all, then it's like they're picking and choosing winners. They're showing favorites, and they can't do that as well. It's just too big. It's not something that they would normally do. The Ethereum Foundation, Joseph Lubin, he's the co-founder of the Ethereum Foundation. He says no. He actually said, quote, "We are absolutely unconcerned that they'll call it a security." So they're not concerned about it. Which is why I agree with them. I don't think they'll do that. And here's really the silver bullet. So here's the silver bullet. And I don't know if the SEC can figure this out, but here's the silver bullet. The argument is that today Ethereum is not a security. It's not. But it was launched through a token sale, so that was an offering of a security. Jay Clayton from the SEC has already said it's possible to go from a security to a utility. So he's already kind of let it out that it could happen. But here's really the silver bullet. Ethereum was never a security. It was never launched through an ICO token sale because Ethereum is a fork of Ethereum Classic. Ethereum Classic launched through a token sale. Ethereum Classic used to be a security and today is a utility. Ethereum was the forked, airdropped version that was never sold in a token sale. So that, I believe, is the silver bullet. And I just don't see how they could go against that.
I guess the thing is, and this will be the unfortunate thing, right? Everybody who has money, who has lawyers like Andreessen Horowitz and Union Square Ventures, they will find loopholes to get out. But there will be somebody who gets made an example of. And yeah.
Yeah, so we don't know. I think that the market is they're going to. What I really think is that nothing is going to happen in the meeting. I think there will be some positive comments come out, and they're going to kick the can down the road. That's what I really think is going to happen. So nothing's going to happen other than some talk and schedules of more meetings. They'll kick the can down the road. The market will rally. Yusuf confirmed that with the charts, and that's what I think is going to happen.
Well, one thing I would actually, if there was a perfect storm, I would actually like Ethereum. I would like a potential catastrophe to occur because I've, in this last Ethereum drop, I've been actually accumulating a lot of Ethereum, especially when it almost hit, $300.
Yeah, you had your chance to buy it for cheap. Give up. You could have got it free.
But no, it's made me, Ethereum's made me really happy these last 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's done good. And you can see that Ethereum drives the altcoin market, and so it just has massive implications to the rest of the industry.
Wow. Well, 10 minutes left. Give us a prediction for. I always call it Touchdown Tuesday, but it's Turnaround Tuesday. What's the seashells talking about for Tuesday, Yusuf?
Seashells. I mean, things are looking pretty. I think Turnaround Tuesday is going to be in the favor of the bulls. I mean, I'm looking at the market right now. It's looking like pretty much across the board, we're finding support. We're kind of rounding off. So it's looking like we're going to see some higher prices. Ethereum in particular is looking really bullish, to be honest. We had this big breakout around that 730 range. We're pulling back down to that 730 pocket, and it looks like we're pulling away from it now. Real beautiful. So don't be surprised next week if we break $900 on Ethereum.
Wow. Well, that would make – I'd be happy. I know Mark would be ecstatic.
Yeah, I think the all-time high is coming back. I mean, Yusuf could talk about from a technical standpoint. I mean, just off the fib lines, off of the high to the low. I mean, we're looking at a new all-time high coming up in the near future, and fundamentally, I think we're there as well. So, I think we'll be back sooner than later.
Actually, Mark, since we're on the topic, I've been reading up on the whole sharding proposal being put out on Ethereum. I suspect you've been reading up on that more. Could you maybe talk about that, or like I haven't fully grasped my head around that and everything on that part. Or are you? Is that something?
Yeah. So basically, the argument. I don't want to not the argument. The weak point in Ethereum's armor. So they have the first mover advantage. They control 75% of the market today. They obviously have the first mover advantage. Their problem, their weak point is that it's too slow. And it processes transactions super slow. And so EOS has come out, all these new, and EOS is not the only person trying to compete against Ethereum. There's, I don't even know, 20, 30 legitimate ones probably. And all of them, their competitive advantage is they're faster. Now, if you're an EOS person out there, you're probably hating me right now because, yes, they also have free transactions, and that's also pretty powerful. But most of the people, their competitive advantage is that they're faster. And so that's what EOS has to fix, right? Ethereum has to fix. They need to get faster. And so I just think that, they have the biggest and best development team in the world. They are single-minded focused on that, and I think they're going to fix it. Now, the options they have on the table are sharding is really their big one, and this plasma. And so sharding is basically a way to take a transaction and break it into slivers or shards and splinter it and spread it out so it can be processed and then bring it back. So that way it can speed up their transaction times. And it's been something that's like on the radar and they're working towards, and there's several updates planned for this year where they're going to start to implement it in. However, it's a little bit far out on the roadmap, but lately Vitalik Buterin, who's the co-founder of Ethereum, he's been pretty outspoken in saying that they're actually getting pretty close to putting sharding in place. And I don't know if he's just pulling an Elon Musk and getting everyone hyped up, or there's some truth to that. We know they're working on it. We know there's other blockchains like Zill already using sharding. So we know it's possible. It's just easy for a brand new blockchain like Zill to do it when nobody's using that blockchain versus Ethereum when, more than 3/4 of the market's running on it. They can't just start putting stuff in that they don't know about. So we know it works. Other people are doing it. We know Ethereum's working on it. Vitalik says that they have it in place, but that's supposedly going to be the answer. And if they can solve that, which I think they can, then their weak point in their armor is patched up.
And just from a high level perspective, because, sharding is a very technical term. I get it because I'm a tech guy and I used to do database stuff. But for people who don't know what sharding is, can you maybe explain it in a more, in an easy to understand manner in terms of like, how does sharding make a blockchain faster, right? Is it a technology? Is it a process?
I did. Sharding is, so you have a transaction and it has to get processed through the blockchain. The problem is that these transactions clog up the blockchain. There's too many. And so what they do is they take that transaction, they shard it, they splinter it, they split it up, and it gets split up across into multiple chains, side chains, off chains, whatever. And so it's sharded, it's splintered. And then by breaking it apart, it can get processed faster, and then it brings it all back together. That's
nice. Well, the goal is we're trying to make Yusuf a fundamental guy. So do you understand, or did you pay attention?
So for everybody watching this, Mark and I, we have a little something going. And at the end of this thing, if certain things happen, Mark has to wear a hat that says technicals trump fundamentals. Look forward to it. Look forward to seeing Mark in a beautiful brand new hat.
Well, Yusuf, I'm just going to go out and tell everybody right now that I started this off by saying, look, I'm open to everything. I am not going to paint myself in a corner and entrench myself in a position. And I've said it from the beginning. I believe in both strategies. I believe that they can both work together. I'm an old real estate guy. I mean, I'm still in real estate, and I own apartment buildings that produce income and will be worth a lot in the future. But I also fix and flip properties. And that's kind of how I look at trading and investing in crypto. So although 90% of my portfolio is in long-term hodl, 10% or 20% I'm actively doing trading with. And so I believe there's a strategy for both. Obviously, some people want to trade 100%, some people want to invest 100%, and some people want to be 50-50, and you can figure that out for yourself. So I'm not afraid to wear that hat. I hope to wear that hat, because that means I'm going to make some money.
Great. So it's about time to wrap up. Just want to make a few announcements. So anyone who's still tuned in, we've got some exciting things planned for the week. For people who heard, we've kind of pre-launched the Green Rush. That is our new, pot stock advisory. And tomorrow night we have a Q&A. So I know a lot of people, or some people, checked out the webinar and they have some questions. So we have a Q&A for tomorrow night. If you missed the webinar and you want to check it out again, we have the PowerCon conference coming up at the end of the week, and both Mark and myself and Dr. Boyce Watkins and a whole slew of people will be there. So we'll be talking, about the two hottest investment opportunities, crypto, obviously, and also, the cannabis markets. That is Friday till Sunday in Atlanta, so that's going to be awesome. And if you can't make it there, we do have another webinar planned for next Wednesday. So that should be really exciting too. And we're still developing it. We haven't really released a replay because we're literally building it as we speak. And we have a new expert, hopefully, that we can, figure out the details. These experts are really expensive. But hopefully if we can figure out the details, we'll actually build an even better content program. I'm really excited about who might be a special guest on our upcoming webinar. So that's next Wednesday. And then for people who are either DU members, subscribers and stuff like that, Mark is going to do the asset allocation webinar. This is going to be a great training. We're going to talk about, all position sizes, what coins, how do you adjust things and everything like that. And Mark, I'm sure you're excited to talk about that on that front, on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super important topic, one that I'm passionate about, one that I think everybody needs to grasp in order to have success. So, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely check that out. If you're, a member of the DAU, or if you just signed up through the Green Rush, there was an email that got sent out giving those details. You'll be auto-registered, and that is Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to be such a good session that we're actually going to record and rerun it on Friday night during a regular scheduled, members only Q&A and everything on that front. So with that, wow, we still have close to 50 people who are still on, from a high of even more. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Great times. We look forward to, hopefully, if you can either join us in Atlanta or join us on our Q&As, or maybe make the asset allocation special class. It's going to be awesome. If not, we'll see you guys on Monday. And yeah, great. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right.